Okay, we are ready to start the Online Chain of Custody webinar. Hello everyone, welcome and thank you for joining our Online Chain of Custody webinar. My name is German and I am a software engineer at SGS Galson. With the help of my colleagues, I have spent many hours building and fine-tuning the system, which I will be presenting today. With me on the line, I have Caroline to assist me in hosting this webinar. She's one of our excellent client service reps and greatly assisted this project by providing her expert knowledge. Before we begin, please note that the webinar presentation will last about 30 minutes, and during this time, all lines are muted except for mine and Caroline's. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to open up the chat window in your webinar browser by first clicking the chat cloud icon towards the upper left, clicking the To Moderators option, and then you can enter your message in the window that pops up below, and one of us will be able to respond to you. For reference, the chain of custody will be referred to as the COC and multiple times during this presentation, so the terminology can switch up at any time. Now, I think the question on everybody's mind that's joined us today is, what exactly is the online chain of custody? Well, the answer to that is simple. It's a free and full-featured web application that we have developed for you absolutely free of charge. And the way that it can benefit you is by helping to reduce the need to store physical paperwork. We provide an easy-to-use online management interface so you can submit, copy, edit, and delete chain of custodies at any time of day and anywhere also, because you can access it on your phone, tablet, laptop, or desktop. Now, moving on, as for the requirements for using the system, all that we ask of you is to get a client portal account created, and you'll be on your way. If you need any help, please contact our client service reps, or you can sign up directly online at www.galsonlabs.com or at www.sgsgalson.com, which will be our new website in the near future. With all of that out of the way, I think we are ready to begin the live demonstration. So I have a Google Chrome open here, and all I'm going to do is type in portal.galsonlabs.com. This is going to bring me to a login page where I will simply enter my client portal credentials. And now I will log in. As you can see, the first thing we are greeted with is the reports page. And before we dive right into the online chain of custody, I would just like to show you some of the benefits of accessing your reports online. In here, you will find any and all reports that you've received from January 1st, 2007, all the way until today. So currently that provides 10 years of reports access. Here you can see I have various testing logins associated to my account, and that's okay. You can see I can get the chain of custody, final report, EDD, data package, and so forth. And one great feature about this is that we have recently implemented a status column. Here you can see that this login we've received it in the building. It's just been logged in. Once the samples make it to the lab, it will be changed to analysis status, and there are several other statuses as well that it can take on. As you can see, the rest of these are final, but if I click this blue question mark, I get a nice pop-up which tells me that logged in. It can be in analysis status. There's the potential for some analyses to be subcontracted, very rarely. We might be reviewing your reports. There's a needs action status or a final status, which basically means you've received the report and now it is also fully available online. So with that out of the way, let's go right to the chain of custody. On the left side here, just go ahead and click this link, and as you can see, my chain of custodies list already has several chains in it. The first two were actually pre-populated for me, meaning that when I placed an order with our client service reps, they gave me an actual prep, and with that information, they were able to pre-fill a few chain of custodies for me so that I can get in here and only be required to fill in the unknown data, such as air volumes, date sampled, and other things that cannot be collected at the time of order. You'll also see that this last chain of custody down here does not have a prep number associated to it, unlike the top two. This one I actually created from scratch on my own. And looks like we have a question come in here. Caroline, would you be able to help the person with the question in the chat window? Okay. So moving on, like I said, the top two were pre-populated for me, and without further ado, I'll just get right into this webinar demo chain of custody. So off on the right, I just click Edit, and this opens up the online chain of custody. Now, before we fully start, I'd like to just briefly overview the interface. Across the top, you'll see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections that we'll be going through. And as we move from section to section, the form will actually automatically save any data that you have entered. If you wish to save your progress right away, just please click the Save Progress button in the upper right. Or if I scroll down, the Save Progress is in the lower right as well. Right next to that, you will also see Save Progress and View PDF. For this, when you click this button, it will save your chain and bring up the PDF file, which we are essentially creating with all the data that we enter here. So this looks like our standard paper chain of custody that you're familiar with. And at any time, you can just review the data in here and just see and make sure that it's coming out exactly as you expect it to. Now that we've seen this, I'll go ahead and close it with the orange X in the upper right. And as you can see, we are in the account and billing section. Since this was a pre-populated chain of custody, the account number was taken over the phone, so I have that set for me. I also specified who should receive the bill, so accounts payable over here on the left side. And on the right side, we have the Report To section. This tells us who should receive the reports under your account. And as you can see, I'm the only one that will receive the report for now, but I am free to add another person here if I choose. So I'll just go ahead and add Caroline. And that's that. We will both receive the report from this chain. Further down, we can see that we have the option to enter a PO number. So if we have one, we can just fill it in right there. And various other details that you'll just notice as you work through this. So as you can see, the account and billing section simply has unsaved data. It's highlighted yellow. And now if I move over to the submittal location, it just saves automatically, and I don't have to worry about losing any progress. So next up is the submittal location. And in this section, you'll simply select at which location you would like to drop off your samples. This drop-down is defaulted to our laboratory in East Syracuse. If we switch it to one of our service centers, such as Ontario, we have Ontario over here, you will see that the address information changes, and also if you are dropping it off in Ontario, we do have to ship it to our East Syracuse office still, so we cannot offer the same turnaround times as if you shipped it directly to us. So next day by noon and same day turnaround would not be available for this section. And now we are ready to move on to the turnaround time info. So over here we go to TAT info, and as you can see, the standard, the 4 business days, the 3, the 2, the next day, and same day. But same day and next day by noon are simply grayed out. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I need these samples turned around in 3 business days. And I can go ahead and do that right here. You will notice that a yellow box has popped up at the bottom here. Since we selected a expedited turnaround time, we do ask that you put a red rush label on the outside of any boxes of samples that require rush processing. So say I'm sending back 3 boxes, I'll just go ahead and click 3 from the drop-down and get rush labels. This gives me a PDF file with 3 red rush labels, and I am free to simply print this out, affix them to my box of samples. I will go ahead and close this, and my apologies everyone, but it looks like we're having some technical difficulties, so give me just one moment to see if I can settle this. Okay. Sorry about that. We are back to the presentation here. So, I've chosen 3 business days and got my rush labels, and let's go ahead and save progress and see what this PDF is going to look like. So I'll click down there, and now we can see the 3 business days on the far left here, and then this chain of custody itself also received a rush denotation in the upper right. This aids our login staff in quickly identifying whether your chain of custody needs rush processing or not, so that we can always keep an easy eye on it. I'll go ahead and close this now. And now we can move on to the collection info section. This section is pretty easy. We just need to know the site name where you collected the samples. If there's a particular project that you want us to record, we'd like to know who sampled it. So I'm going to just go ahead and put my name in there. You can add any general comments, any interferences below that. And then finally, the state in which the samples were collected, or province if you happen to be in Canada. And that is that. So moving back up, I will move on to the occupational exposure limits section. In this section, we simply specify which regulations our samples need to be analyzed against, and this, depending on which OEL you choose, you might need to sample for a greater volume of air, but that should all be determined at the time of order. So we have OSHA-PEL, the ACGIH-TLV, the MSHA, Cal-OSHA, and IAQ, or indoor air quality. I am going to leave this blank for now because I do not need any of those. Moving on, we actually have, this is our biggest benefit to using the Online COC, the sampling info section. First, this section does have some on-screen controls, which I'd like to go over. And on the left side, there's a Your Sample section. So my chain of custody has 3 samples so far. I can quickly switch between these by simply clicking on them. And if I need to rearrange them, because I want to see them in a specific order, just simply highlight one of them in blue, and then use the orange buttons to either move it up or down. So I'll move this middle one to the very last position, and there we have it. Down a little further, we will see 4 more buttons. One is for adding another sample. So if we have additional samples that we want to send in, feel free to add them here. We can copy the currently highlighted sample. So if we're doing a lot of the same stuff, you can just pre-fill most of the information for one sample and copy it, say, 50 times or 20 times or whatever you need. Next, we can delete this sample, which will delete just this one, or we can delete multiple samples at once. And if we delete multiple samples at once, I'll just show you here. It brings up a dialog box and you pick which samples you want to delete. So let's go ahead and get started by filling out the first sample here. So we have the sample ID, and I'm just going to call mine sample-1. And here for the date sampled, I'm just going to pretend I did this today. And let's say I had sampled for 300 liters of air, or no. This is a badge. let's say I sampled for 4 hours. So we have 140 minutes there. One thing to note with the sample ID up here is that for each chain of custody, the sample ID does have to be unique between all the samples. So you'll want to do stuff like sample 1, sample 2, and ideally mark your samples in some way so that we know which tube or badge needs to get tested for which analysis. Okay, so going back down here, sorry for the diversion, we can see that the collection medium, the N571 aldehyde badge, has been pre-selected for us because that came off of the prep when we placed the order. And we know we're sampling for formaldehyde, and the method reference is even chosen for us. So that's excellent. And if we preview this chain of custody at this point, we will see that the very first sample here, oops, too much highlighting, here we go, sample 1, has the date sampled, the minutes, and everything else that we need. So I will go ahead and close this. And next, let's simply pretend that we do not want to send in all of these samples right now. We're just not ready. So I will delete multiple samples. So the ones that did not get assigned an ID, I'll just check those off and away they go. No longer on this chain of custody. As part of this demo, I'd also like to show you how to add a sample from scratch. So, as you guessed it, we click the Add Another Sample button. As you can see, all the data has cleared out here, and we have a new sample on the left side with no sample ID. So we're going to have sample-2 here. And let's say I did this also today for the same amount of time. And for this one, you'll notice that the collection mediums actually grayed out. This is actually for your convenience because we'd like you to choose the analysis requested first. So I'm going to start typing in formaldehyde. And we get this nifty auto-suggest box. And I'm just going to click formaldehyde there. And we get this pop-up window. So in this window, you will choose from a list of collection mediums which can be used to detect formaldehyde. So what I've actually done, I've simply pressed the down arrow so that I can see all the collection mediums that SGS Galson offers. I'll go ahead and click on the N571 badge because that's what I want, and simply click Done. Now you'll see that the collection medium got filled in there, and the method reference got automatically selected based on the media and analysis combo. And I'm going to go back up to the sample ID here and actually delete it out because of something I'd like to show it. So there that goes. Okay, so that's it for the sampling info section. We are ready to move on to authorization. And in here, it's pretty straightforward. We simply need to put our name, the date, and the time which we're relinquishing our samples to SGS Galson. Down here below, you'll see that you have the option to sign this COC electronically. And if you do not sign it electronically with this checkbox here, we ask that you print out the PDF and send it in with your samples. But if you do sign electronically, then all you have to do is write the chain of custody number on your bag of samples once you finalize the COC. And our login personnel will be able to automatically pull up your electronic chain and bring it into our system. So that saves you the hassle of needing to find a printer if you're filling this out in the field and you just want to ship your samples off without needing to return to the office. So we're going to sign it electronically, and then we're going to go finalize it to the finalize section and push this green button, finalize COC, and see what happens. And over here in the sampling info section, you'll see that it turned red, telling us that we have errors there. So if we go back, we can see the left-hand side has an exclamation mark next to that sample. And since we're already looking at it, we can see the sample ID is required. So let's put in that sample too. And now it's not complaining anymore, so good to go ahead and try to finalize this chain of custody again. So just click finalize here, and we get a pop-up to tell us that once this chain is finalized, we can no longer edit it, but we do have the option to create an exact copy, which is useful for when we have very similar sampling events in the future. So I'm going to say, yes, finalize my chain of custody. And that's that. Well, we're almost done. So before you send your samples in, please make sure to write the chain of custody number onto your bag of samples, and that will be all we request from you. On this page, you also have the option to email this chain of custody to yourself. So I'll go ahead and send myself an email real quick here. And there we go. The chain of custody should be in my email now. And that is that for the actual chain of custody. But before we finish here, I would like to head back to our original list of chain of custodies, and you will notice that the one we just worked on has a finalized status, and we can view the PDF here, so we can save it to our desktop or print it out right away. As you can see, it was signed electronically, so there's no room for an actual signature. And if I close this window, you can notice the blue More box. We have the option to copy this chain of custody into a new one, or once again, we can email it to ourselves if we wish. And all of these chains have their own options. If a chain of custody is in draft status, you will be allowed to delete it here, as you can see, and of course copy it or email it as well. Now, before we conclude this webinar, I'd also like to highlight the fact that we do offer those pre-populated chain of custodies that I was referring to, and most of you might have experience with these already because we send them to you with your box of media. Now, I will just bring up my email here to show the shipping notify back when Galson shipped out the samples to me. So this, one moment. So we are looking for this prep number, 404924. I placed this order, And at the very bottom, we provide a convenient link for you to get into the pre-populated chain of custody right away. So simply click on Try It Out here. And since I am already logged in, you can see that I gained immediate access to the chain of custody for this prep number. And these preps were actually identical, so all the account and billing, the sampling info section, everything is pre-filled. Well, most things are pre-filled for us here. Okay, so this actually concludes our online chain of custody webinar. Now I would like to kick off the Q&A session, and I invite everyone to please ask any questions which you might have about this system. If a topic was covered or not covered, please feel free to ask away, and we will do our best to answer your questions. I will take a look at the chat queue and see if there's anything that somebody asked earlier. Okay, so one question we have here is, at what point should the client get the chain of custody to us, and whether or not it should be in our hands before the samples arrive. Ideally, actually, we do need the chain of custody to be finished by the time the samples arrive, especially if you require rush processing for something. We need to know exactly what your samples are being analyzed for, so the chain of custody needs to be available for us to draw that data. Okay. We have another question here about whether or not the online chain of custody is going to affect any EDD processing for any clients that might have EDD set up. And the online chain of custody changes absolutely nothing about the EDD. Since the chain of custody is being processed at the point of login, no matter whether you did it by hand or you use the online system, the rest of the flow through the laboratory and the EDD creation process proceeds as normal. So if all the data is on your chain, then we can follow everything through appropriately. And does anyone else have any other questions at all? All right, so since I don't see any other questions coming through, I would like to bring this webinar to a close. If you have any questions at all while using the Online COC in your day-to-day work, certainly feel free to get in touch with our client service reps, or you can also use our IH live chat. So, sorry about that. On the left side here, a couple steps below the chain of custody, you will see the IH Live Chat, and you simply click on that, and you'll get the web chat window as you would off of our regular site. So now you can work on the chain of custody and get help while doing it. In conclusion, we certainly feel that this webinar will help you feel confident and equipped to make your sampling life easier, because that is what we strive for on a daily basis. Thank you.